Okay, good morning. Today we will go on with the selection process of hiring a new salesperson or hiring anybody who belongs to the sales team. In this part particularly, we are going to talk about the interview. Generally, the interview is something very important. But today we are going to shed light on the fact which I told you before when I gave you the grades of the midterm exam. Many of the students were panicked. Many of the students were not satisfied, either male or female. But today we are going to give you another evidence that your transcript or certificate is not enough for getting a job. So if you are going to look at her, it is the critical part for the selection or of the selection process for all sales positions, because interpersonal skills are so important in sales. The interpersonal skills, they are not only critical in sales positions. They are critical in all the positions in business. Now, if you are going to focus only on the results or the outcomes of the written tests, this isn't enough. Because tests cannot give us any information about the verbal skills which must be available in the character of any candidate. In the test, what we are going to do? We are going to write down. Can we communicate? Can we speak? No. Therefore, the employer cannot get enough information about your potential or skills of communication. So, interviews are typically conducted at two levels. Level number one, we called it a primary interview. With second one, we called it secondary interview. Well, this is reminding us with the map which we studied, secondary interview, and over there, the primary interview. In the primary interview, somebody is going to say, why the sales they are focusing on two kinds of interviews? For one simple reason. The primary interview, it is going to dig in the character of the candidates to identify if they are enjoying interpersonal skills or not. These skills include, number one, look at this, poor speech pattern. If the candidate is having poor speech pattern, this means that this person does not fit to work with us as a sales agency. Number two, unacceptable appearance. Or finally, lack of necessary maturity. These are the three characteristics which we can grasp or predict after we are going to conduct the primary interview. If the candidate is missing one out of these three qualities or traits, then we have the right to disqualify him or her. What's the meaning of disqualify him or her? Drop him or her out from the candidacy. So this is the major function of the first interview. Okay. The initial interview is followed by the main interview, in which candidates are screened in order to identify people who best match the job qualification. Now, one benefit of the interview is that manager can follow up on information obtained from application blanks. Now, we finish the first interview. We are sure that the candidates are having or enjoying interpersonal skills, including all these things. So now we can qualify him to go, or qualify her to go and to pass the second or the secondary interview. This is reminding us with what is happening in the employment and the education of ministry. في التربية والتعليم. We cannot hire a teacher who, for example, mispronounces S like th. We cannot hire him or her. But why? Because later on this person is going to teach our kids. If he or she cannot pronounce the letter in a right way, this is going to be reflected on the kids and the learners. Because of this is reminding us with what we said about the employment and the hiring. All persons, all employees, they must enjoy the interpersonal skills. Those or these salesperson, later on, they are going to communicate and convince customers. They are going to communicate with people and so on. Move on. Now, let's talk about interview. Well, listen here. Generally, interviews, they are classified into 3 types. Type number 1, we called it structured. Type number 2, as Hanin said, semi-structured. عشان ما فيش كفاية S يعني structured. Semi-structured interview. Type number 3, unstructured. Now listen. In the structured interview, number 1, they have set of questions, set of specific questions. Set of specific questions. Set of specific questions. They are in a specific order.
Standardized for each candidate.
They are written in advance. What's the meaning of written in advance? Exactly. They are asked for all candidates. For all candidates in the same order. In the same order. These are briefly the major characteristics of the structured interview. هلا اختيارنا unstructured is totally the opposite. بمعنى we do not have certain set, no set of questions. Or number 2, no specific order. Or not written in advance. وكمل. Also not asked in the same order. Sometimes we say this is a structured interview, or sometimes we called it patterned. Exactly. We called it patterned interview. They are the same. Patterned interview. Okay? A semi is something in between. بمعنى a semi is going to be had. This is the semi structured interview.
In between.
Exactly. In other words, Fatin, a semi-structured, they are founded on an advanced written specific order questions. Or other questions, they will be drafted based on the responses which we listen from the interviewee. The new questions which we draft while we are listening the answers from the interview. So semi, it is a prefix in English which means almost, شبه. شبه موجه, شبه مركب. Okay? Now, here the book which we are studying says from is advising us all the time to use pattern interview, especially if the managers or the recruiters, they are inexperienced in the field of recruitment. So if they are inexperienced, we are advising them to depend more on the structured or the pattern interview. Why? So that they can evaluate the candidates easily and they can compare among their performances in a very organized and systematic way. وضحت? But if the managers, they are inexperienced, or they are going to conduct an unstructured interview or semi one, they will encounter difficulty in putting good evaluation or specific evaluation or fair evaluation for each candidate. Clear? Any question, any comments about this? Any question, any comments? Go on. It's semi-structured now. We explained it and we said half of the questions, they are already in advance written and prepared. Half of them, they are drafted during the interview time based on the answers which we are listening from the interviewees. المقابلين. Okay? Any question? Go on. Now listen. So far, we have application. Second, we made a test for the candidates. Third, we made interview. Now we are going to add interview number 4 regarding their own types. The interview number 4, we called it field observation. The field observation is a special kind of interview. Well, listen how we are going to conduct it. For example, we are going to tell Amna, she passed from the test and the first interview. Later on, we are going to give her an invitation to come and to spend with us 1 day observing the actual responsibilities of the work which she is supposed to do later on, if she got the job. If she got the job. After Amna is going to observe the similar duties and responsibilities, she is going to make something called self-assessment. This self-assessment might be positive and might be negative. If it is positive, she will tell the employer, I am ready to do all the responsibilities and the duties which I observed. Why? Because I know them before. I already experienced them or experimented them. Or I have a good relevant training and education regarding them. On the other hand, she might have negative assessment. In other words, she might say, I am sorry, I do not want to continue with this employment for various reasons. Number 1, these duties and responsibilities, they are new for me. I do not experience them before. I do not have an experience about them. I do not have relevant training, or I don't like them. Briefly, I don't want to exercise similar duties and tasks. Okay? So in this scenario, طلعش بقول لك, who feel they are not likely to meet that challenge, they can eliminate themselves. What they here, it refers to candidates. Exactly. Because of this, we called it what? Self-assessment. Clear? Yes. Later on, we are talking now about follow-up. Listen here. Assessment تقييم ذاتي. Self-assessment. انتبه معي هلون. Let's come to the first idea which I told you at the very beginning of the class. I told you the application, it's important, but it isn't everything. A test, it's important, but it isn't everything. What about the interview? The same thing, it isn't everything. Now we would like to dig in. Read. Personality of the candidate. Personality of the candidate cannot be revealed with only these things or with your GPA in the university. This isn't enough. Well, I'm talking to you from actual experiences. Employers, they would like to know, who are you? Who are you as a human being? Who are you as a person? Who are you as a person, or your ID cannot be revealed by these things. So in this case, we have to go on and add something called follow-up. In the follow-up, we are going to collect further and extra information about you, especially your manner, moralities, moral, friendliness, and so on. Why? To get some information about your personality. Your personality is the most important thing which we are interested in as employers. As employers. Listen, sometimes the candidate might fill in a very excellent application. He or she must achieve more than 90% excellent grade in the test. His score in the interview or her score in the interview is going to be outstanding. But this is not enough. We would like to be sure that this person is the right person who should be a member with our own family, with our own teamwork. Is he honest or dishonest? Is he loyal or disloyal? Moral or immoral? All these things are important. Therefore, various testing are done in the field of sales. Some of them focusing on intelligence. Second, personality. Third, aptitude test. What's the meaning of aptitude?
Readiness.
Exactly. Excellent, Haneen. Readiness. Aptitude test means a test which can give us information if the candidate is ready to tackle the responsibilities of the job or not. Some persons, they are ready, or they do not want further training or orientation. While other candidates, they need extra learning, training, orientation, and so on. So this is the meaning of aptitude test. Finally, we are going to make the physical examination, which we said it's important.
Yes.
We shouldn't give it up. Everybody must be examined physically in a very strict way and rigid way. Okay? Any question, comments about this? Move on. Skip this. Listen here. Now we would like to talk about resume analysis. Resume, as we said, it is a CV. Resume in American language, CV in British language. You as a recruiter, you have to analyze the CVs which you are reviewing. طب how I'm going to review the CVs? Number one, account of all dates. As we said before, you have to be sure that the dates are not overlapped. If the dates are overlapped, the dates either the years of education or the years of work experience, if they are overlapped, معناته this person isn't saying the truth. Number two, examine number of jobs of the length time spent on each job. Listen here. Why, or I'm going to ask you a question, why we should focus on this thing? As a scanner or a reviewer of the CV of the candidates.
Because, for example, if the person jump over the jobs, he or she might have a problem
Of
Coping.
disloyalty, sustainability, commitment, and so on. Excellent. We named this phenomenon in the HR. Exactly. This is a job hopper.
Office.
Excellent. Job hopper. He is jumping from one job over another. Jumping from one job to another. طب, is this person a good person or a good candidate to be hired? The answer is no. Somebody is going to ask, طب, why? Because simply, this person is going to cause us exhausting. Why? He is going to leave us as he did in the past with the previous employers. Or later on, we are going to repeat the same story from the very beginning. Because of this, if we saw that the candidate is working on more than one job, with a year of service in each job is temporarily 2 months, 3 months, then this person isn't the right person whom you should consider for the job. Somebody from you might say, but what if we are working, for example, on job creation program? ايش عن job creation program? خلق برنامج فرص عمل للبطالة. You should indicate this in your CV. Why? To give the chance for the evaluator to know that your contract is finished out from your willingness. What's the meaning out from your willingness? برا إرادتك, خارج عن إرادتك. Okay? Gone. 3 reasons for leaving jobs. This is very important. This question, the probability of being asked later on, you will see. You will remember me. The probability of asking this question to you is with more than 90%. Especially if you already worked or if you are currently working. If you already worked or if you are currently working, the coming employer will ask you simply why you are leaving your job or why you left your job. Is this a legitimate question? It's a legitimate. But what is the smart answer for this question? Give me possibilities.
Transportation.
Number 1, end of contract. Because of this I left the job. Another possibility, طلع, I have extended family why I'm looking for better employment opportunity. What's the meaning extended family? Why I'm looking for better employment opportunity. ببحث عن فرصة عمل أفضل. يعني أنت قاعد بتلمح لمين هنا؟ Excellent. للmaterialistic compensation. طب, is it shameful to mention this? No. It's your right. Clear? That's it. Okay? Go on. This is very important. What are some of the common mistakes which we might fill in which we might fill in if we made the interview. Number 1, failure to establish rapport. Rapport means linkage. Exactly, or connection. Exactly, excellent term. Connection. بمعنى I am the interviewer. I asked the interviewer a question. Or later on, I began looking at the ceiling. Or I began examining my watch. This isn't appropriate. Or this is a mistake for 2 reasons. Number 1, we are showing disrespect for the candidate. Or number 2, this means you are not listening. And if you are not listening, how you are going to evaluate them? Because of this is reminding and it is linked with what? With this. So you should not do that or fill in this mistake. Now I'm going to give you a very important story about how the interview or your behavior in the interview can be devastating. Doesn't mean devastating. Destructive. يذبحك. Look at here. In 1990, there in America, there was an election between Bill Clinton, who used to work as a governor of of Arkansas State, and George Bush, the father. He finished his first term of the first 4 years. He decided to nominate himself for the second term. In the second term, Clinton nominated himself from the Democratic Party. And they decided to make, as we witnessed before a few months, the interview debates between Obama and Romney. The same thing. George Bush, who is the president now, and the new governor, who isn't famous, Bill Clinton. When the interview or the debate happened, the president, George Bush, he was watching his watch, or he was looking at his watch more than once during the interview times. This was a fatal mistake, which played one of the reasons, one of the factors for his failure to be a second president in the second term. Somebody is going to wonder why. Exactly, for the people. No respect for the interviewer. No respect for the audience. Because of this, all the American media, they were talking about this behavior. After that, he killed himself. بمعنى, he failed in the election. This is taught in the management courses in America. The interviewer, المذيع, was asking the president a question. With the president, the nominee, he was watching his watch. This means he doesn't care. This means he isn't serious. This means he is disrespecting the people and the audience. Or later on, he fell down. Now, second, lack of a plan. In other words, we are not planning for the questions. Or the questions are haphazard. Or they are coming from our own minds. Or they are not related to job responsibilities. Number 3, insufficient time. We do not have enough time. Or we are giving the first candidate 30 minutes, with the second candidate 20 minutes, with the final candidate 5 minutes. Is this fair? No. So we must distribute all our times equally. 5, personal bias. This personal bias is something very essential. Somebody is going to say how the bias can happen. It can happen based on sex, based on
gender.
Okay, we said it. Based on okay, we do not want to mention race because we do not have race in community, and political affiliation.
Families. Age.
And sometimes families. I agree with you. And sometimes families. Or names of families.
Yes. Especially in Gaza.
Okay, maybe. So all these things, they are inappropriate. Inappropriate. Irrelevant. And we should not be trapped by them. If you are going to be trapped by them, معناته your evaluation as interviewer is not correct. Or it isn't fair. And it isn't fair. Look at this. Regarding the first factor, if the employer is a man, he might be biased and try to prefer a candidate who is belonging to the manhood. Or if if she is female, she might prefer to hire female one, and so on. This is what? Bias. The same thing with the second factor and the third factor, and so on. The final one, questions. All the questions, they should be fair. If you ask one question and you draft it in a specific way, the same draft must be distributed to the other candidates. Because any question can be drafted in more than one way. Some of the drafting is direct and easy, and others complex and indirect. Finally, first impression. Oh, this is very dangerous. Somebody is going to say, why it is dangerous? Listen here. If you are going to hire, for example, a salesperson, or she is female, or she is beautiful, and so on, the interviewer is going to be satisfied, or he is going to be happy. His happiness and his imagination in this beauty might lead him to misevaluate her, even though her answers are incorrect. And sometimes, if this candidate, she isn't beautiful, or ugly, or whatever, her ugliness might lead the evaluator to evaluate her in a very bad way, even though her answers are correct. Because of this, we are saying the evaluator or the interviewer now becomes a prisoner. A prisoner for what? Exactly. Well, after that, he or she will not evaluate in an appropriate way. The book isn't mentioning another mistake, which is, read. The candidate. Somebody is going to say, how this can be a mistake? Listen here. Hanin.
If the candidate is preceded by a strong candidate, he will fail. يعني sure. If he is in a lower level than him, he will fail. And if and vice versa.
ممكن. So number one, the order of the candidate is playing an important role. Sometimes it's going to lead mistakes. Well, let's give example. Fatin is candidate number 1. Iman is candidate number 2. Amna 3. Hanin 4. And Aisha 5. With Fatin, when we are going to interview her, we as interviewer and evaluators, we are awakened. We are energetic now. We are concentrated. Everything which will be said by Fatin will be recorded and evaluated in a very nice way. Later on, your zeal and activity will get down. With Iman, our ability will get down. With Amna, more and more. With Hanin, we finished. With Aisha, zero. And we do not have, or we are not ready to listen anything from her. Because of this, we are saying order is important. The first. And if you are in middle, I doubt it. If you are the last, you are committing a suicide. Really? Because of this, we are saying order of the candidates is something very important. Somebody is going to say, how we are going to overcome this mistake? If the interviewers feel that their activity or concentration is deteriorating, stop interviewing. We have a break. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and later on, resume your interviewing.
It's related to time.
Order.
Order related to time.
Yes, the order is connected with time, but the major thing is order. ترتيبك. Clear? Any question about this? Let's move on. Now listen. These are sample of the questions which we might use in the interview. Sample of the questions. Number 2, 3, 4, sample of the questions. 5, 6, 7, sample of the questions. 8 and 9, sample of the questions. Where we would like to take a sample. Let's talk about 8. All the time remember, why should we hire you? This is one of the most common repeated questions in the interviews. You should prepare an answer for it. Another question, especially if it is in sales, you might be asked a situational question. How? Sell me this pen. بمعنى, We are a company which is producing stationery. Please, this is the pen which we are manufacturing. Tell me how you are going to sell it to me as a customer. Or you as a sales person. Is this a situation? It's a situation. Are we going to demonstrate our ability to do that? Yes. Well, listen here. Nowadays, more than 60 up to 70% from the questions in the interview, they are based on situations. Either what happened to you in the past or hypothetical one. What's the meaning of hypothetical? Exactly. Well, this is the meaning of situational interview or situational questions. سؤال موقف. Any question, any comments about this? طيب, here, read this at home, at home. What's signature? Next time we are going to talk about how you can be a super salesperson. What is left in this chapter is very limited. We will go on with what makes you a super salesperson. In the first 15 minutes we will finish chapter number 7. Later on we will go with our last chapter. Please prepare your own report on Monday. Hard copy. Any question, any comments about this class?